He was at the center of things back in the 60s, but rarely was he the center of attention. And for Pat Killorin, that was just fine. Oh, sure, he was an All-American football player on the Hill, not once, but twice. The kid from Watertown who centered the line for Ben Schwartzwalder's 1963, 64, and 65 teams, blocked for guys named Little, Csonka, and Nance, and Coughlin, too. Gary Bugenhagen was a stellar guard on those Rocky Pirro-coached O-lines.
They didn't have all the protections that they have now. There was a lot of dirty play going on in the line. The head slap was legal. The line play was different.
The significance of when he first met Killorin was not lost on tackle John Cherundolo.
My first day at Syracuse University, I came up during the snowstorm of 1966. And I was being shown around the campus as a recruit, ran right into Floyd Little and Pat Killorin. And all of a sudden they started talking to me, and Pat kept the conversation going for a half hour. And here I was, a 17-year-old young kid out of Arlington, Virginia. And that made such an impression on me, because up to that moment, between him and Floyd talking with me that long, up until that moment, I had no intention of coming to Syracuse.
The 65 offense was the nation's best in all-purpose yards per game. And Pat Killorin was at the center of it all.
He took no prisoners when he was on a football field. Quick off the ball.
Well, my first meeting of Pat was in 1963. He was introduced to me as Goose. And he goes, geez, that's a funny name for a football player. And I said, how did you get the name Goose? And he says he's got a long neck and he does waddle a little bit when he walks. He was a tenacious center. You don't make All-American 2 years in a row by being a pansy.
Killorin's pro career with the Pittsburgh Steelers was cut short by 2 knee injuries. And yet he returned to his hometown Watertown Red and Black semi-pro team as player coach. Jim Keller and Michelle Devlin didn't know Pat the football player. Keller met the businessman, Devlin the volunteer.
My first impression was special, just a big personality. Very great listener, caring, empathetic. 30+ years later, that's all true.
I met him about 15 years ago when I started working at hospice with the volunteers. Pat is one of the best human beings I have ever had the pleasure to meet.
Killorin, the decorated football player, is well documented. His business career has been just as successful. Vice President of Syracuse Key Maintenance Products for 15 years. After forming Patco Management, Inc., he served as President CEO for more than 20 years. Now, he's a partner in a building maintenance firm.
And I saw him do hundreds of things for employees. The best leaders make their people better. It's not about them, and that was Pat.
And then there's Killorin, the community servant. He's been given the key to the city of Watertown, honored by both Hospice and United Way of Central New York. He's also aided Meals on Wheels, Honor Flight, American Cancer Society, and disabled veterans.
Back in the day, he couldn't qualify for military service because he had a deaf in one ear. However, if you know Pat today, and he probably wouldn't mention this, he drives for the VA, so he's doing his military service.
I always call him a Renaissance man. He is this sports star, but then he writes poetry, he meditates.
He and Mike, his wife of 53 years, have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and live in Radisson. Enshrined in the Watertown Red and Black, AFA Semi-Pro Football, and North Country Sports Halls of Fame, Pat Killorin now becomes a member of the Greater Syracuse Sports Hall of Fame, class of 2019.